philosopher Immanuel Kant, 1724 to 1804, who in turn drew on the European Enlightenment's long tradition of discourse on the possibility of securing lasting peace. Kant was no naïf. He wryly observed that a Dutch innkeeper had painted the very words "perpetual peace" on his tavern sign alongside a picture of a graveyard, implying that the only true and lasting peace would be the eternal sleep of death. Yet Kant believed that peace among states was no empty idea, but rather a task that, gradually solved, comes steadily closer to its goal. Not that perpetual peace would draw any nearer in his own lifetime. The great general and empire builder Napoleon was crowned emperor only 10 months after Kant died in February 1804, and would spend the next decade menacing the world. Even so, a little over 200 years later, many dare to believe that humanity might finally have moved beyond armed conflict between states, that following the better angels of our nature, we may well be able to fulfill Kant's dream and, at last, win the war on war. Yet, with death and destruction all around us, the peace we have feels more like that of the graveyard. And, more than any other form of conflict, the one that has lately filled the graveyard is not war between states, not terrorism, but civil war. Civil war has gradually become the most widespread, the most destructive, and the most characteristic form of organized human violence. The decades following the Cold War saw a major spike in its incidence. Since 1989, an average of 20 intrastate wars have been in progress at any moment, about 10 times the annual average globally between 1816 and 1989. There have been roughly 25 million total battle deaths in these wars since 1945, or about half the military casualties of World War II. Even that count does not include wounded, displaced, and dead civilians, let alone all those afflicted by disease and malnutrition. The material and economic costs have been no less staggering. Hard-nosed analysts of global development have focused on the impact of war on growth, factoring in the loss of life and, consequently, of productivity, as well as the value of wasted resources, military spending, the spread of crime and disease, and the disruption of neighboring economies. The result of their calculations? The annual price tag for civil war has been about $123 billion, roughly what the global North budgets for economic aid to the global South each year. Not without reason, then, has civil war been chillingly described as development in reverse. Wars within states tend to last longer, some 4 times longer, than wars between them, and in the second half of the 20th century, they have generally lasted 3 times as long as in the first half. These conflicts are also much more prone to recur than any others, as the most likely legacy of a civil war is further civil war. Indeed, almost every civil war in the last decade was the resumption of an earlier one. Civil wars seem disproportionately to befall the world's poorest countries, especially those in Africa and in Asia, which the development economist Sir Paul Collier has called the bottom billion. If the developed world has enjoyed a long peace since 1945, large parts of the global population have undergone an equally long trauma. The Centre for the Study of Civil War in Oslo proclaims all these distinctions on its website, adding, "Yet civil war is less studied than interstate war. It seems that civil war, like the poor, may always be with us, and so long as it is, it will generally afflict the world's poor. But civil war shouldn't also remain an impoverished area of inquiry. As many have noted, civil war has remained under-theorized and resistant to generalization. There is no great work titled On Civil War to stand alongside Karl von Clausewitz's On War or Hannah Arendt's On Revolution. Indeed, as we shall hear, Clausewitz hardly discussed civil war at all, while Arendt herself dismissed it, along with war itself, as atavistic and anti-modern.